Okay, so hello everyone. I'm still currently on my break from social media, but today NEGAN Lives came out, so I wanted to make a video for YouTube and talk about it. I will resume videos when I come back. I will resume my Witcher reactions and all of that whenever I come back. It will probably be another few weeks maybe before I'm fully back, but I will be back. But for right now, I figured this would be a nice little something to tide you over until then. So we're gonna talk about, I almost said here's Negan. No, this is NEGAN Lives. And we're gonna flip through and talk about it because I do have some thoughts, obviously. For those of you who don't know, NEGAN Lives is the continuation of Negan's story from issue 174 of the Walking Dead comic books. That was the last issue we actually saw him in, and after that, we never saw him again. So, if you wondered what happened to Negan, this tells you, at least up until a certain point, what happens to Negan. So, we're just going to go through it. These are comic book shop only, is the only place you can get these. The color variants are, I know there's a kind of like foiled gold and silver, but my shop only had the red, which is totally okay with me because I love the color red and I think it's very fitting for the cover that you can see. So I'm going to try to do this with gloves on, which is probably ridiculous. So here's the inside. I won't read it to you, but I'm just going to talk about it. So if you don't want to be spoiled by what happens in this, maybe don't watch this video, you know, just generally. I'll label this as a review so you'll know not to watch. So of course it starts with Negan picking flowers for Lucille's grave. This is literally what I look like right now. You can't see my face, but this has been me for the past week. And he goes to take them to her grave. Oh, we are skipping ahead. Don't want to go that far yet. Okay. So he goes to her grave and takes her flowers. Now I want to talk about this page in particular for a minute. I have always related to Negan. I find him to be very similar to me. We have a lot of things in common, especially with how we deal with trauma and things that are painful. We're very similar in that respect. But this panel in particular kind of like broke my heart a little bit. And I also, as a side note, I want to give a shout out to Charlie Adlard. The way that he drew these, particularly these 4 panels, is just absolutely beautiful. I don't think I've ever seen Negan look so beautiful before. Absolutely gorgeous. Like the detail here is just beautiful. And Negan here is talking about wanting to die but being afraid to, because he just is scared of what's going to happen when he does die, and I relate to that so much. I have the same fear, and I'm going through the same thing now. I kind of have been struggling in my own life with my own mental health, and I've been having similar thoughts to these, but also being terrified of death, so I'm kind of in the same place he is here. And it's just nice to see Negan like this. He's talked about things like this before. He was highly suicidal when Maggie came across him in issue 174, and obviously he's still struggling, which is heartbreaking for me, but Negan is human and he feels emotions, and so to see him like this is really hard. But for me, it's been really helpful to see him like this because I kind of feel him right now, and it makes me feel not so alone in what I'm going through. I like to relate to these characters if I can, because it just, you know, kind of makes me love him more. And we also find out something else about Negan on this panel, and that's that he's an atheist, and I didn't know that. I thought maybe he would fall in the kind of agnostic category, but apparently not. So we've learned some things about him here. He also apologizes to Lucille about the wives, which I don't think I've ever seen him do in the comics before, so that's nice, actually. Again, here's another panel that I really like. This one here, you can see his big thick neck. He is drawn after Hank the Tank, of course, so this is... of course he has that thick neck. But again, just beautiful artwork on the panels here. He gets a little frustrated, apologizes for taking it out on Lucille, and then leaves. When we also find out that here that he probably does this every day, which is really sweet, actually. So then he goes back to this house that he ran off to. He's still there, and he has a visitor. This girl introduces herself as Lucy, and he is convinced that he's hallucinating for multiple reasons. For one, she introduces herself as Lucy. For another, she's pretty well put together for somebody who claims to be starving and wandering around. She doesn't look like she's been wandering around, does she? So, of course, you know, we find out about that. But again, Charlie Adlard, man, with this artwork, I think that these panels are gorgeous. I just can't get it. I can't get over how beautiful like some of these panels are. They're just absolutely beautiful. So here they just kind of have a little like heart-to-heart sort of kind of, you know, just generally talking to one another. And then Homegirl tries it here, and this is where I kind of got a little annoyed when I first read this, because we all know that I don't like any woman being all up on my man, so I kind of started looking at her a little sideways, which I was generally wary of her from the get-go because of how she showed up there. It didn't add up with her story, which Negan starts to realize at this point, because he's realizing she's way too put together, her clothing is way too put together. Now she's asking me about communities, if I know of any. She's with somebody. So this is when he clocks it. And he calls her out like, listen, I know you're up to something. And of course, he's then attacked. And they're trying to kill him. I love this particular one right here, because he says, help me hold him down, this guy's a fucking tank. Which, like I said, Hank the Tank, it's who he's drawn after, of course. Negan's a monster. And I love Negan's panel here as well, where he says, I'm barely fighting and you can't get this done. So, then they get him up and they make him start digging a grave. And they start getting all up in his business, asking him what's in the grave, like who's in the grave. He tells them that Lucille, his baseball bat is in here, the baseball bat's in the grave, and he, of course, tells them an abridged version of the story that, you know, Lucille died, and we know the story by now. Like, they have like a setup or something, because every time Negan is in trouble, inevitably a herd of walkers show up and kill everybody but him. I don't know how that happens every time, but he's got some good luck with those walkers, because this is literally how it goes every time. So all these assholes that attacked him get bit here, or eaten, or whatever. And then Negan takes this shovel and tries to cut this guy in half with it, which, you know, unfortunately it doesn't work, and he gets a little aggravated because he really wanted it to work. Which this is just, again, just like the artwork on these panels is just phenomenal, and it's just like pure Negan, just with his wonderful language that he uses. There is so many motherfuckers and fuckings and everything in here. Classic Negan, as they say. So then we get to this point, and this is pretty much where this ends for the most part. And the way that this comic ends is that Negan decides he's going to go back to the hospital where Lucille died and try to find her body or whatever remains are left and bury her properly. He wants to bring her back to the grave that they have dug and bury her properly. And apparently he's taken Homegirl with him, which I don't like this. And I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen. And of course, this is, I like this, that this is how this ends, with just a big Negan grin, and don't you want to see what happens next? I think it's a great way to end this particular one here. And obviously in the letter hacks here, Kirkman goes on to tell why they did this and how it came about. Charlie Adlard yet again saved Negan's life. Kirkman has tried to kill him multiple times, and every time he does, Charlie Adlard emails him and is like, wait, but what about this? And saves Negan's life every time. So thank you, Charlie Adlard. You are my god. I love you and appreciate you. And I just want to point out down here, because obviously this ends without us seeing the end of Negan. He doesn't die. Negan lives. So down here, though, I wanted to point out that Kirkman says, I don't know if we'll ever actually see what happens next. To me, you see the headstone in 193. That story is pretty much told, but I'll never say never. But probably never, probably. And I don't believe a word he says. But the point he was making there was that Negan had a cross, a wooden cross on Lucille's grave. And when we see the grave again in 193, it's an actual tombstone. So that would, of course, lead you to believe that Negan brings her body back. And at least that's what I'm taking from that. That he finds her, brings her back, and buries her properly, gives her a headstone and everything. So, yeah. That's the end of that. So there you go. That's Negan Lives. I really enjoyed it, actually. I enjoyed it a lot. And, of course, I would have liked to have gotten more, but that's just me being greedy. But there you go. Definitely go pick it up yourself and add it to your collection. And I will see you all very soon. Love you guys.